Static 2D visual posts are a powerful tool in brand marketing, offering a simple yet impactful way to promote events across social media platforms. Static posts allow you to capture attention with striking imagery and concise messaging, making them ideal for showcasing key event details such as dates, location, and highlights. Static social media posts are an excellent way to maximize visual impact, utilizing design elements like typography, color, and imagery to create memorable posts that resonate with an audience. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to design static social media posts from scratch using some simple yet powerful tools in InDesign. We'll cover setting up your document, adding text, images, and even add some design flair. So here I am in InDesign, and here are some static social media posts we are going to develop in this video. Now, this design is part of a series of branded marketing we'll be creating on this course for a fictional design exhibition event. To create static social media posts in InDesign, we're going to cover the following key steps. This is a methodical process that will ensure we create quality design in InDesign and not leave anything unchecked. So be sure to check the bookmarks in this video so you can jump back or ahead at any time. After this video, you'll be able to create social media posts in Adobe InDesign super easy. So let's get into it. So up until this point, we have been creating designs for print. Now, InDesign is not only a powerful tool for creating print publications, but also digital publications. And when it comes to digital marketing, InDesign can be a very powerful tool for creating static social media posts. Now, static social media posts are often frames which are paired with a caption. The goal of the static post is to initially catch the attention to entice one to read the supporting message. A good static post will be simple, bold, and eye-catching. Now, as of making this video, there are a wide range of post dimensions for a variety of social media platforms. Some are square, some are landscape, and some are portrait. Here is a document example of some social media posts for two specific sizes. When creating static social media posts in InDesign, it's common to work like this, where you may focus on a few post designs in one document. InDesign offers the perfect workflow environment to work on multiple posts in one document, which can make it easy to manage all the visual elements across a campaign. For this project, we're creating some static social media posts for a fictional design expo. For the look and feel, we're going to take reference from the brand media kit that is included as part of this course, where we will be including some of the brand motif, color elements, and photography as part of the designs. We'll also be using some of the design elements we have already developed previously in this course. If you want to take a look at this document and get all the assets and follow along, you can get access to this document from the course download folder. This download folder comes with multiple projects and a ton of assets and resources we will be using in this course. You can find the link to acquire the folder from the description. With the download folder open, click into folder 4 project, into the design expo folder, click into folder 2 event publication design, and open the event design InDesign file. This is a document that contains all of the publication designs we'll be creating on this course. If we scroll down to the marketing collateral page, we can see a variety of documents. For this video, we are going to look at the static social media document. So with the selection tool, I'll select the static social media thumbnail. Now I'll either come to the links panel and click edit original, or I'll hold Alt on the keyboard and double click on the worksheet thumbnail, and the document will open in its own tab. Now for this document, I'm using the font Base New. If you've not already downloaded all the fonts for this course, this is a free font that you can acquire online. To get this font, I would recommend you check out the course fonts page on the course PDF document. This is a list of all the fonts that are used in this class and where to get them. Simply click the Base New link and this will take you straight to where you can download it. Simply close this document, install the fonts, open it back up again, you should be able to follow along just fine. So in this document, I have two rows of static social media posts. On the top row, we have some social posts for Instagram using the 1080 by 1350 dimension. And below, I have some posts for LinkedIn using the 1200 by 627 dimension. So in this document, we have multiple posts with two different canvas sizes. This is one of the benefits of InDesign, where you can be very flexible within a document. In this document, each post is treated separately as its own post containing 5 posts with a variety of media approaches utilizing the brand's look and feel. If I press W to toggle between preview and normal mode, as simple as this format may initially appear, in normal mode we can see that there's quite a few things going on behind the scenes. To help structure and align my elements, I have used a baseline grid which fits inside the margin space around the inside. In this document, I also have a crop layer. As of making this video, the Instagram wall feed on mobile shows images at an aspect ratio of 3:4, whereas the posts themselves need to have an aspect ratio of 4:5. So a post on the wall is slightly cropped in from the side. If you want to design a post to look ideal for the wall, you will need to account for this crop that currently happens. So here I have a crop margin which I can toggle on and off. So I can design in this space, knowing that if it looks good in this space, it will look good on the Instagram wall. So if we look over in the layers panel, we can see 5 layers, one for crop, one for type, one for texture, one for stroke grid, and one for base images. These static posts include a lot of visual elements, so the layers have been set up this way to make it easy to organize and manage them. And if we look at the character and paragraph styles panel, we have some styles here formatting our text, and we also have some in the object styles panel. So let's see how we can create a document like this. So to begin, I'm going to come up to File, New, and create a new document. Now when creating a new document in InDesign, you can choose from a range of presets, but for social media posts, it's a bespoke size. Instead of selecting a preset, I'm going to come straight over and type in my own properties. To kick off the document, I'm going to initially set this up to create a 1080 by 1350 post for Instagram. This is a common post dimension for Instagram, which looks great in the feed. So in this instance, we will go with the portrait approach. So I'll set the units to pixels, set the width to 1080, the height to 1350. I don't want facing pages, so I'll make sure this is unchecked. I'll set the pages to 2. For now, I'll set the margin to 50 pixels, click create, and my new document will open. So looking back at my previous document, we can see that I have the pages next to each other. I've done this because I like to organize certain posts in a row. When creating static social media, you can work on a lot of posts, and the document can soon build up. I like to work with my posts in rows, so I can see more posts at a glance. Also, if I want to include different canvas sizes, it can be easier to manage them in rows. So for ease of workflow, I like to put my pages next to each other. I'll come over to the page panel, I'll click on the right top menu, scroll down, and currently we can see a tick next to Allow Document Pages to Shuffle. I'll click this to remove the tick, then in the Pages panel, I'll click on my second page and just drag it up next to my first page. When I see the line next to the page, I'll release, and that will snap the page next to it. And you will also see this page be immediately next to the page in the work area. Next, I'll come into the Tools panel, I'll click the Page tool, I'll click on Page 2 and just drag it to the right, putting some space between the pages. So looking back at my final social media posts, if I press W, I can toggle between normal and preview mode. In normal mode, we can see the grid I have used to structure the content. For this approach, I have a single column, and I've used a baseline grid which will allow me to align things vertically. So now I'm going to come into my InDesign preferences, click on Units and Increments, and I'll set this to pixels for horizontal and vertical. If you're following along, I'd suggest you do the same so you can match what I'll be doing next. So back to my document, I'll come over to the Pages panel and double click on the parent page. First, I'll come up to Layout and click Margins and Columns. Right now, the document is set with a 50 pixel margin around the inside. Here, I'm going to click to unlock the link, set the left and right to 125 pixels, click OK, and now we have a large margin on the left and right. Now, you may be wondering why I have set it up like this, but don't worry, you'll see why shortly. Next, I'll come back up to Layout, scroll down and click Create Guides. In the menu, I'll make sure to click to turn on preview. For rows, I'll set the number to 40, and for the gutter, I'll set this to 0. I'll make sure to hit the check mark for Fit Gutters to Margins. I'll click OK, and if I click on a page in the Pages panel, the grid will be applied to the page. Perfect. So once I have my document set up, I can now start thinking about working with visual elements. But before that, I will want to set up a crop margin. So as of making this video, the Instagram grid wall on mobile currently crops into images at an aspect ratio of 3:4. So what it effectively does is crop off the sides of a post ever so slightly. So if you're planning on a very specific design, like I am here, you will want to account for this. Here in InDesign, I can create a crop margin to be sure. And to set this up is fairly easy. So I'll come and select the rectangle frame tool, then simply click once on my canvas area. In the values, I'll type in 1080 for width and 1350 pixels to match the canvas area. Click OK and set the color to magenta. Again, I'll select the rectangle frame tool, click once on my canvas area, and this time I'll type in 1012 for width and 1350 pixels to match the area of the Instagram wall feed. Click OK and set the color to black. Then with the selection tool, I'll select them both, Up in the control panel, I'll hit the Align Horizontal Center and Align to Vertical Center and place them both in the canvas area like so. So the black area represents the aspect ratio of the Instagram wall feed and the magenta represents the post. With them both selected, I'll come up to Window, down to Object and Layout, across to activate the Pathfinder panel, and with them both selected, I'll click on Exclude Overlap. And now we will be left with the side margin. So now I can see the white space, which I'll have to design in, which will look good on the Instagram wall feed. To finish this step, I'll come over to the Layers panel, double click on the layer and call this Crop. I'll also click to make sure that the print layer box is unchecked. Click OK, double click back on a page in the Pages panel, and now we will have the grid and crop margin set to each page. As we press W on the keyboard to toggle between normal and preview mode, we will only see the crop area in normal mode. And to finish, I'll hit the lock icon to lock the layer going forward. Nice. So once I have my document set up, I can now start thinking about working with visual elements. Now, depending on the nature of a design, this can influence whether you start working with type or image. Looking back at the final design, I can toggle off the visibility of the type, texture and base images layer, and we can see the overall design is structured in what appears to be a stroke grid, which is used to compartmentalize the elements. If I toggle back on the base images layer, we can see the variety of image elements across the posts. If I toggle back on the texture layer, we can see additional visual elements. And if I toggle back on the type layer, we can see how those elements work on top. So this is a very specific design approach for this particular brand's look and feel. Here, I'm going to have to be really careful in order to make sure that this works well on an Instagram post to the right dimension. So for this approach, I'm going to start with the base grid structure and then work my way upwards. To begin, I'll come into my Layers panel, click to add a new layer at the bottom of my Layers panel. Since I'm starting with my stroke layer, I'll call this Stroke Grid and move it to the bottom. Now looking back at the final design, you can see there's quite a distinct style for this. The grid comes in from the top and finishes at the bottom with space around. Back in my document, I'll grab the rectangle tool and I'm just going to start outside of my canvas at the top, and I'm going to make sure that I click roughly in the middle between the margin space on the right and the crop area on the left. I'll click and drag down to my bottom margin and then across again in the middle of the space on the right. Upon release, I now have a simple box frame carefully positioned on my page. I'll just come over to the Tools panel. I'll make sure the stroke is selected, and for now, I'll just come and set this to black with a stroke size of 1. And if I press W on the keyboard to toggle between normal and preview mode, we can see my stroke outline there. Now for this grid, I also want some horizontal lines. So I'll come over and grab the stroke tool from the menu, and I'll just start by clicking and dragging across while holding Shift to draw a straight line from one side of my box to the other. Again, I'll make sure the stroke is set to black with a size of 1. With the selection tool, I'll just drag the stroke while holding Shift down and place it at the top of the 4th row from the bottom. Now I'm also going to need another one. So with the selection tool, I'll just drag it up while holding Alt plus Shift to make a quick duplicate. For now, I'll just place this roughly 2/3 of the way up, and this lays down the base grid and the fundamental structure that I'm going to build on top. So now we've defined some properties for these stroke objects, I'm going to make a quick object style. So first, I'll select one of the strokes, then I'll jump into my Object Style panel, click on the top right menu, click New Style, and I'll name this Base Stroke. Click to apply stroke to selection, click OK, then I'll select all the other strokes and apply the base stroke object style. So if at any time after creating these strokes I want to change the color or size, all I have to do is simply change this one object style and it will change them all automatically. Easy. So next we can start to work with text, which will then define the space and layout where we can finalize how we place the images. Looking back at the final design, we can see that for the design approach, there is a headline that sits in the top left in each post consistently, and below this there is an image element. To begin, we will start with the headline text. So now I'll come into the Design Expo content deck. This is a content deck that has been created to help you follow along with all the tutorials in the course to get hold of all the text. If you want to get hold of this content deck, click the link in the description or click the link in the course PDF. So I'll come to the page for the social media static posts. I'll select the header copy for post 1. Into my document, I'll come over to the Layers panel, click to add a new layer, I'll name this Type. I'll make sure this layer is set above the stroke grid layer, and for now, I'll lock the stroke grid layer so as not to accidentally select anything on this layer. I'll come to the Tools menu and click on the Type tool. On the first page, I'll click and drag a type frame from the top margin across to the right and down around 1/3 of the page, like so, to give myself some space to work with, and I'll paste in the text. Next, I'll come into the Design Expo Brand Toolkit. With the download folder open, click into folder 4 Project, into the Design Expo folder, click into folder 1 Media Kit, and open the Expo Brand Kit InDesign file. This is a brand kit document that includes all the style references we are going to include in our publication design. If we scroll to the Format Guide page, we can see that for display headers, we want to use Base New Expanded Medium. So I'll select the text. Up in the control panel, I'll change the font to Base New, click the drop down on the family and select Expanded Medium. I'll set the size to 65, set the leading to 70. I'll press Escape to deselect the text and drag in the text frame to apply more comfortable text dragging and down if I need to. And then double click on the bottom middle anchor point to snap the frame up to fit the text. So now we've defined some properties, I'm going to make a quick paragraph style. With the text selected, I'll jump into my paragraph style panel, click on the top right menu, click New Style, and I'll name this Header. Click to apply style to selection and click OK. Now when working with type in InDesign, you want to be careful. So I'll come up to type, scroll down and click on Show Hidden Characters. Hidden characters in Adobe InDesign are printing symbols that represent formatting elements in your text, such as spaces, paragraph breaks, tabs, and line breaks. These characters are essential for understanding structure and flow of your text, but are invisible by default when working in a document. So right now I can see there is a paragraph break at the end of my text. I don't want this, so I'll place my mouse cursor at the end and press delete to remove it. Now my text is nice and clean. So now I have the header type in a good position. I can now come and unlock the base stroke layer and drag the horizontal stroke up to sit comfortably under the type. What I want to aim for is to get about the same amount of space above the text as below the text. So looking back at my final design, we can also see I have this label type with a highlight effect applied. Now we could create this from scratch, or we could recycle from a previous document. In a previous video, we set up a poster design. In that episode, we learned how to format the text to create this exact label and apply the highlight effect. Now, one of the awesome things about setting up character and paragraph styles is that these can be copied and pasted from one document to another. So instead of formatting this from scratch, I'm going to grab a sample we prepared earlier. So I'll come back to the event design document we opened earlier. On the marketing collateral page with the selection tool, I'll select the poster thumbnail. Now I'll either come to the links panel and click edit original, or I'll hold Alt on the keyboard and double click on the worksheet thumbnail and the document will open in its own tab. I'll come and select the label type in the top right. I'll copy this, jump back into my social post document. I'll make sure the type layer is selected. I'll paste and place it below in the module space, aligned near the top against the left margin. Into the content deck, I can see for this label, I need to change this to save the date. So I'll copy this, paste it in, and add a line break after save so it reads across 2 lines like so. Easy. So looking back at my final document, on the first post, the last piece of text is the date that sits in the bottom module space. I'll come into the content deck, select the date information for post 1, back into the document, I'll come to the tools menu and click on the type tool. Click and drag a type frame from the top left to the bottom right to fill the bottom module space, and I'll paste in the text. I'll set the font to Base New. From the family, I'll select Base New Expanded. Set the size to 48. I'll click to align the type to align center. I'll push out the tracking so the type fits perfectly inside that module space below to around 1240. I'll press Escape to deselect the text, and with the frame selected, I'll click to align the text center in the frame vertically, and that completes all the type elements for the first media post. So now I have all the text in my post, I can start working with images. Looking back at the final design, for post 1, we can see I have a logo mark in the top right, a gradient map image in the module space below the header, and a color block under the footer type. To begin, I'll start with the logo mark symbol. And to make this easy, I'll jump into the brand toolkit. So back into the brand toolkit, if we scroll to the logo page, we can see a sample of the logo mark. So I'll click to select this, copy, and back into the document. I'll first come over to the layers panel, create a new layer and call this base images. I'll make sure to place the layer at the bottom. I'll paste the logo into the document, place it at the top right of the margin, and because it's a vector group, I'll place my mouse cursor in the bottom left and click and drag while holding shift and scale the logo mark to fit 3 rows in the baseline grid. Easy. So next I'm going to place an image into the module space below. With the base images layer selected, I'll come into the tools panel and grab the rectangle tool, and I'll just drag from the top left to the bottom right of the module space, and I'll draw out the shape of the module space, and into this frame I'm going to place an image. So back into the toolkit, if we scroll to the image treatment page, we can see a variety of image samples with particular color treatments applied. For the first social media post, we are going to use one of these gradient map samples. Now I can either place the image manually into my social media post or copy and paste the sample from this document. So here's a cheeky tip. I'll select the image sample from the brand toolkit. I'll copy and jump back into my document. To make it easy, I'll first lock the type and stroke grid layer and paste the image onto the base image layer. With the direct selection tool, we can click to select the image inside the frame. I'll copy the image by pressing Command+C on Mac or Control+C on PC. Then I'll press Escape, select the image frame and delete. I'll select the new frame that I want the image to go inside. I'll come up to Edit, select Paste Into, and the image will appear in the frame. Next, I'll right click on the frame, down to fit in, I'll select Fill Frame Proportionally. And that is a really useful technique for getting images from one frame into another. But if you don't have a situation like this where you're sampling images from other documents, you can just place the image in manually. So I'll click into the image with the direct selection tool and delete the image. With the rectangle selected, I'll press Command+D on Mac or Control+D on PC to place an image. I'll navigate into the download folder, into folder 4, project, into the Design Expo folder, click into folder 1 Media Kit, into the Assets folder, into the Image Treatment folder, into the Gradient Map folder, and open the Design Expo GM Event 003 PSD. And the image will be placed inside. With the direct selection tool, I can click on the image in the frame, and here we can see the bounding box representing the image inside the frame. I'll click on the middle right anchor, and while holding Shift+Alt, I'll click and drag to scale the image down or up to fit within the frame. Nice. Now this is a luminous image. If it's looking pretty dull your end, come up to Edit, down to Transparency Blend Space and click RGB. Now if you're curious to see how this image is made, with the selection tool, I'll click on the image frame. I'll either come to the links panel and click Edit Original, or I'll hold Alt on the keyboard and double click on the worksheet thumbnail and the document will open up in Photoshop. If we look in the layers panel, we can see that to create this effect, I have a gradient map layer set on top of a colored image below. And if we toggle off the visibility of the gradient map layer, we can see the original image. For now, I'll close this and come back to the social media post. So the last visual element on this post is the solid block of color below. So with the base images layer selected, I'll come to the tools menu and grab the rectangle tool, come over and click and drag to draw a shape to fill the bottom module space. I'll set this to black with a tint of 10%, and that completes the image elements in my first post. Now looking back at the final designs, we can see that on top of the image layer, I'm also using some texture samples from the brand kit as part of the visual brand aesthetic. So again, I'll jump into the brand toolkit and scroll to the texture samples page. Here I'll grab the square grid sample from the document over on the left, copy, and back into my document, I'll come and create a new layer. I'll name this texture, make sure it's placed just above the grid layer, paste in the texture, place my mouse cursor in the bottom right and drag while holding Shift to scale up and position like so on top of the background image. So once all my elements are in a composition, I then like to start thinking about color. So now if we look in the swatches panel, we can see that we have some of the brand colors copied over from some of the elements that we pasted into the document earlier. Now back into the brand toolkit, I could copy and paste the colors from the brand at a glance page, but to make it even easier, you can import a colored swatch. So back into our document, come to the top of the swatches panel, click the menu and come down and click on Load Swatches. Upon click, you will see a window appear. I'll navigate to the download folder, click into folder 4 project, into the Design Expo folder, click into folder 1 Media Kit, into the Assets folder, into folder 5 Color, and click to open the Design Expo palette document. Upon click, we will now see the colors present in our swatch panel in a folder, but we will need to be careful. Here we can also see some duplicates which can happen when you paste in elements with the same color multiple times. Here I'll come and select on the duplicates, right click and select delete and replace them with the new colors. And I may need to quickly rename some of the swatches to clean this up here. Nice. So I could come and select the text elements and the stroke elements and change the colors individually, but now I've created some styles, it'll be easier to change the color there. So I'll come into the paragraph styles panel, double click on the header style I created earlier and change the color to midnight. Once done, I'll press W to enter into preview mode and we can see the type has changed. Next, I'll come into the object styles panel, double click on the base stroke style and change the stroke color to Ultravio. I'll select the footer type at the bottom and set this to midnight. I'll lock the type layer and select the color block at the bottom. I'll set this to Solaro and set the tint to 100%. And lastly, I'll select the texture sample, change the fill color to midnight, and this now completes the first social media post. So once you're happy with one layout, it's very easy to duplicate and make modifications. This is the true power of InDesign. So before we move on and see how easy it is to make additional posts, I first have to deal with repetitive elements. If we look back at the file design, we can see that for our 5 posts, we have a consistent grid, type, and logo structure. So to help manage repetitive elements, I'm going to use parent pages. So right now in the Pages panel, if we look at the top, we have one parent page with the prefix A, which is currently applied to each page below. So I'll come to my first post page. I'll toggle off the visibility of every layer but the grid layer and the crop layer. I'll unlock the base grid stroke layer, select only the outside stroke and the top horizontal stroke. I'll press Command plus X on Mac or Control plus X on PC to cut. I'll come up and double click on parent page A. I'll paste the visual elements on the stroke grid layer and position them correctly. And if I double click on page 1 in the layers panel, we can see that the strokes are now back and now also on the second page. Nice. Next, I'll toggle off the stroke grid and toggle on the type layer. I'll select all the type elements apart from the footer text. I'll press Command plus X on Mac or Control plus X on PC to cut. I'll come up and double click on parent page A. I'll paste the text elements on the type layer and position them correctly. And if I double click on page 1 in the Pages panel, we can see that the text is now back and again on the second page. Next, I'll toggle off the text and toggle on the base images layer. I'll select the logo mark. I'll press Command plus X on Mac or Control plus X on PC to cut. Double click on parent page A. Paste the logo element on the base images layer, position it correctly, double click on page 1 in the Pages panel, toggle back the visibility of all the layers, and now everything is back in place and we have our essential elements on the parent page. Perfect. So now we have our first post complete and our repetitive elements set on the parent pages. We can now look to create additional posts. So looking back at the file designs, we can see that for post 2, we have a slightly different approach. This time, instead of using a gradient map image and the date, we are using one of the brand motif collages. So back into the document, the first thing we can do is edit the header. So right now, the header in post 2 is uneditable because it is currently set in the Pages panel. But here we are going to override the text elements. So I'll jump into the brand content doc, select the header for post 2, back in the document while holding Command plus Shift on Mac or Control plus Shift on PC. I'll click on the header text and this will override the parent page element, and now this text frame will become editable on this page. Now we can double click into the text frame and paste in the new text. Nice. On this occasion, I'll pull out the text frame right to allow the type to carry across 3 lines. Next, I'll press and hold Command plus Shift on Mac or Control plus Shift on PC again, and this time click on the horizontal stroke line to override the parent page element, and click to drag this up to place under the text more comfortably. On this occasion, I'll press and hold Command plus Shift on Mac or Control plus Shift on PC again, click on the label to override the parent page element, and click and drag it down to the bottom right. So now I have edited the type and repositioned the label, I can now bring in a collage sample to place in this space. Back into the brand toolkit, if we scroll down to the brand artwork style page, we can see we have links to collage samples. With the selection tool, I'll select the collage thumbnail. Now I'll either come to the links panel and click Edit Original, or I'll hold Alt on the keyboard and double click on the worksheet thumbnail and the document will open up in its own tab. So here we have a series of collage samples we worked on in a previous episode. If you have not watched that episode and you're curious to learn how to create digital collages like these, you can jump back to the previous video. Or if not, you can just open this document from the download folder where you can follow along. For the second post design, I'm going to use the first collage composition on the second row. Now over in the layers panel, I've organized this document into separate layers to make it easy to work with. In this instance, I'm taking everything but the type. So in the layers panel, I'll toggle the visibility of the type layer off, and now I can just see the visual elements. With the selection tool, I'll click and drag over the elements, copy these, come back into my document, make sure I'm on the base images layer and paste. And I'll take a few minutes to reposition the elements inside the module space like so, until I have something that looks like this. And that completes the second social media post. Now before I move on to the next post, I just want to change the color of the label highlight on this post. Now to do this is really easy. So right now this label formatting is being defined by a paragraph style, but in this case we only want to change the highlight color. So in this instance, it would be wise to use a character style. So I'll come and select the text in the label. Down in the character panel, I'll click the top right menu and click on Underline Options. In this instance, I'll change the highlight to Ultravio and set the tint to 40% and click OK. Next, I'll come into the Character Styles panel and hit the top right menu and click New Style. I'll name this Ultravio. Make sure to apply style to selection and click OK. Now, in the Character Styles panel, I have an option to simply change the color of the highlighted effect. For example, if the text is selected, if I come and click on None, the highlight effect will go back to the default, as set by the paragraph style. And if I click back on the Ultravio character style, it will set it to the new color. Nice. So now we have a document with 2 posts. Let's look to make some more. Now once you have a document set up like this, making more posts is easy. So I'll come to the Pages panel, make sure the last page is selected, and at the bottom of the Pages panel, I'll click to add 3 additional pages. Upon creating 3 new pages, you will see inside we also have the repetitive elements from the parent pages. Next, I'll come into the Pages panel, grab page 3 and drag it up next to page 2, use the Page tool to put some space between. Drag page 4 and drag it up next to page 3, use the Page tool to place some space between posts 3 and 4, grab page 5, drag it up next to page 4, and use the Page tool to put some space between. Using this technique, I could create as many posts as I want, but for this example, I'm just going to continue with 5 posts for now. So looking back at the final design, we can see that post 3 is similar to post 1, but uses a full color image with additional texture objects on top. So to begin, I'll come into the content deck and copy the header for post 3. Back into our document, using the same technique as earlier, I'll press and hold Command plus Shift on Mac or Control plus Shift on PC. Click on the text frame to override the parent page element. Double click into the text frame and paste in the new text. Here I'll adjust the text frame to control the text dragging. Then I'll click into the text and place a soft return after hands on and remove the paragraph return at the end of the text until I have a layout like this. Next, I'll bring in an image. To make this easy, I'll make sure all the layers are locked apart from the base image layer. On the first post, I'll select the image, then click and drag across while pressing Alt to make a duplicate and place it in the module space below and expand the frame to fit the space. Next, I'll press A to activate the direct selection tool. Click on the image to select it and press Command plus D on Mac or Control plus D on PC to place in an image. I'll navigate into the download folder, into folder 4 project, into the Design Expo folder, click into folder 1 Media Kit and into the Assets folder, into the Photography folder, into the Engage folder and open the Design Expo Workshop 002 JPEG. And the image will be replaced inside. With the direct selection tool, I'll click into the image and move it around in that space and scale to position like so. Next, with the type layer unlocked, I'll press and hold Command plus Shift on Mac or Control plus Shift on PC, click on the label to override and drag it down to the bottom left. This time I'll double click into the text and change the text to Register Today and press Escape to deselect. So right now the highlight color is set to the default, but in this instance I want to change the color again. So this time I'll make sure nothing is selected. I'll come into the Character Styles panel, click on the Ultravio character style, right click and duplicate, and I'll call this Lumo. I'll double click on the new style. Down to the underline options, I'll change the color to Lumo, set the tint to 20%, click OK. Come and select the label text and click on the new Lumo character style and the highlight color will change again. Nice. So looking back at the final design, we can see that on top of the images, we also have some additional texture to give it a little bit more dynamic. So first I'll come back to post 1. I'll make sure the texture layer is unlocked. I'll grab this square grid texture and drag it over into post 3 while holding Alt to duplicate. And I'll just scale this down a little in the right corner, like so. I'll jump into the brand toolkit and scroll to the texture sample page. This time I'll grab the circle grid sample from the document over on the left, copy, back into my document, I'll paste in the texture on the texture layer, place over on the left side, scale to fit and change the color of the texture to fluoro. So looking back at the final designs, for post 4 we have a similar approach to post 3 but with some subtle differences. Like post 3 we have a large image underneath, but this time we have a different headline format. To start, I'll press and hold Command plus Shift on Mac or Control plus Shift on PC, click on the header text frame to override the parent elements, and I'll press Delete to remove them. Again, I'll press and hold Command plus Shift on Mac or Control plus Shift on PC, click on the horizontal stroke and move it down, and now I'll bring in the header. Now, in a previous video, we set up a flyer design. In that episode, we learned how to format the text to create this exact header effect and apply character and paragraph styles. One of the awesome things about setting up character and paragraph styles is that these can be copied and pasted from one document to another. So instead of formatting from scratch, I'm going to grab a sample we prepared earlier. So I'll come back to the event design document. On the marketing collateral page with the selection tool, I'll select the flyer thumbnail. Now I'll either come to the links panel and click edit original, or I'll hold Alt on the keyboard and double click on the worksheet thumbnail and the document will open up in its own tab. I'll come and select the header type in the top left. I'll copy this, jump back into my document, make sure I have the type layer selected, paste, and right now the type is too small for my document. So with the selection tool, I'll grab the bottom right anchor point of the text box and drag it out. I'll make sure nothing is selected, come into the paragraph styles panel and double click on the header style in the header and titles folder. This is a style that was just brought in from the other document. I'll come to the basic character formatting settings, set the size to 65 and the leading to 70 to match the other headline text. And to make this clear, I'll rename this to header version 2. Click OK and the text will resize. Now, if the frame is too small, I might have to click again on the bottom right and drag out until I can see the text fit in the frame. Keep in mind that all of this text is assigned to this one paragraph style here, and the second line is defined by this character style. With the second line selected, if I click none in the character panel, we will see the formatting remove. And if I click back on the header line 2 style, it will return. All this character style is doing is applying the stroke and the all caps effect. The size and leading is defined by the paragraph style. But now I will need to tweak the size of that stroke because it's looking a little small. So with the bottom line selected, I'll come into the stroke panel, set the size to 1, then come over into my character styles panel, right click on the style and click redefine style, then double click on the bottom middle anchor point to snap the frame to fit the text. Easy. Now I'll jump into the content deck, select the top line for post 4, jump back into my InDesign doc, change it, back into the content deck, select line 2 and update the text and add a soft return to the text to adjust the text dragging like so. So now my text is in place, click on the middle stroke and reposition to fit more comfortably under my text. Next, with the type layer unlocked, I'll press and hold Command plus Shift on Mac or Control plus Shift on PC, click on the label to override and drag it down to the bottom right. I'll double click into the text and change the text to register today and press Escape to deselect. With nothing selected, I'll come into the character styles panel, click on the Ultravio character style, right click and duplicate and I'll call this Fluoro. Into the new style, down to the underline options, I'll change the color to Fluoro, set the tint to 50%, click OK, come and select the label text and click on the new Fluoro character style and the highlight text color will change. Nice. So now I have established the space below, I can bring in an image. Like earlier, with all the layers locked apart from the base image layer, in the third post, I'll select the image, click and drag across while holding Alt to make a duplicate and place it in the module space below and adjust the frame to fit the space. I'll press A to activate the direct selection tool and click on the image to select it. Press Command D on Mac or Control D on PC to place in a new image. I'll navigate into the download folder, into folder 4 project, into the design expo folder, click into folder 1 media kit, into the assets folder, into the photography folder, into the event folder and open the event 010 JPEG and the image will be replaced inside. With the direct selection tool, I'll click into the image and move it around in that space and scale to position like so. So looking back at the final design, we can see that on top of the images, we have additional texture like on post 3. So now it's just a case of unlocking the texture layer and clicking and dragging the texture from post 3 onto post 4 while holding Alt to duplicate, position like so, and in this instance, I'll change the color of the circle texture to Solaro for some variety. So looking back at the last social media post, for post 5, we have a very different approach, where we have a grid of 6 showcasing the mugshots of all the key speakers. To start, I'll press and hold Command plus Shift on Mac or Control plus Shift on PC, click on the header text frame to override the parent elements, jump into the content deck, select the header copy for post 5, jump back into the doc and replace, remove the end paragraph break, and double click on the bottom middle anchor point to snap the frame up. Next, I'll press and hold Command plus Shift on Mac or Control plus Shift on PC, click on the middle stroke and move it up to sit comfortably under the header text. Next, I'll press and hold Command plus Shift on Mac or Control plus Shift on PC. Click on the label to override and this time delete it as I won't be needing it for this post. Now looking back at the final design, this post has a grid inside the space. Next, I'll press and hold Alt plus Shift and click and drag the horizontal stroke line down to duplicate and place it approximately halfway in the space below. Next, I'm going to want to separate this space below into 3 columns. A cheeky little tip here. So I'll use the rectangle tool to draw a shape and fill it with color. I'll press Alt and click and drag to the right to make a duplicate, and I'll place this right next to it. I'll do this again by holding Alt and drag across to drag the shape right next to it. So now I essentially have 3 shapes. I'll click and drag to select them all and place the left edge right up against the left stroke line. I'll place my mouse cursor over the middle right anchor point and click and drag to the right stroke. I'll click on the middle shape and delete, and now I can see the approximate width of the 3 columns here. With the selection tool, I'll click on the stroke in the background. I'll press Command plus C on Mac or Control plus C on PC to copy. I'll press Command plus V on Mac or Control plus V on PC to paste. I'll move the mouse cursor over the right hand side, and when the mouse cursor changes to rotate, I'll click and drag while holding Shift to snap to 90 degrees. Then I'll drag the stroke over to align to the side of the first shape and drag down to fill the height of the shape. I'll click and drag while holding Alt plus Shift to make a duplicate and place it on the edge of the 3rd shape. With the selection tool, I'll click the 2 shapes and delete. So now I know that these 2 strokes are situated perfectly in my shape below to allow for 3 columns with 2 rows. This now sets the space that I can place in my mugshots and text. Nice. So getting these mugshots in is going to be fairly straightforward. For this, I can jump back into the brand kit, and if we scroll down to the speakers page, we can see these have already been pre-composed. So I'll select the 6 key speakers for the post. By pressing and holding Shift on the keyboard, I'll select the top row of 4, the bottom left and the bottom right mugshot. Copy these, come back into the document, make sure that the base images layer is unlocked, and I'll paste them in. Now in this instance, the profile mugshots are roughly the right size for what I need. So first I'll just click each group and drag them into each grid space, allowing for some space below. While holding Shift on the keyboard, I'll click on each mugshot, move my mouse cursor to the right, click and drag while holding Shift, and this will scale them all down a little. And again, I'll reposition until they're comfortable in each grid space. So with my images placed, the last part is to get the text under each mugshot. Looking back at the final designs, we can see the formatting of the text where we have a title and paragraph. So again, to make this easy, we could format this text from scratch, or we could recycle from a previous document. I'll jump back into the flyer document we opened earlier, and on page 2 we can see the formatting for the text we included for the profile mugshots. I'll come and copy an example of this. Back into my document, I'll make sure to unlock the type layer, and with the layer selected, I'll paste in the text sample. Now on this occasion, it's pretty small. So I'll move the text into position under my first mugshot. I'll press S to activate the scale tool. I'll make sure the reference point is set to the top left, and I'll click and drag down while holding Shift to scale this up until it fits comfortably underneath my image. Now upon pasting this text sample into my document, I have also copied the paragraph styles associated with it. So now if I come into the paragraph styles panel, we can see the styles. If I select the profile title, we can see that there is currently a plus icon over the style. So I'll make sure to change the size of the paragraph title to 22. I'll right click on the paragraph title style in the paragraph styles panel and click redefine. I'll do the same for the paragraph text below. With it selected, I'll change the font to 16, right click on the paragraph style and click redefine. So next I'm going to grab the type frame, drag and align it to the left side of the stroke. And I'll drag the bottom anchor point down to the bottom of the grid space. I'll right click on the text frame and click on text frame options, and I'm going to apply a left inset space of 50 pixels. I'll click OK and adjust my text frame and image above to sit comfortably in the space. Then I can click and drag my text frame while holding Alt to duplicate them across and place them in the next grid spaces. I'll adjust the profile images above to match. I'll copy the text frames down, adjust the mugshots to match, and now I have a very neat and consistent layout of the text frames and the profile images above. Now it's just a case of jumping into the content deck, copying the names of each speaker and the job titles of each, updating the text in the social media deck, and that completes the last post. Nice. So now I have 5 posts on 5 pages in this document. Now I could leave it there, or I could continue to create more posts. But in this instance, I want to create some additional posts, but now with some alternative canvas sizes. Now, one of the powerful things about using InDesign is the ability to create documents like this, where we can set up and manage multiple individual posts and use consistent styling and elements to create professional design. What also makes InDesign powerful is the ability to create additional slides in a document to different canvas sizes. So instead of having to swap between different documents, it can all be done in one document, which can make it really easy to oversee an entire campaign and manage all the visual elements, styles, and so on. So now I have the 1080 by 1350 post set up. Looking back at the final design, we can see that in the second row, we have the same posts as above, but set to a different canvas size. The posts above will be used for Instagram, and the posts below will be used for LinkedIn. Now, working with different document sizes is easy. So first, I'll come to the Pages panel. I'll click on page 5 and click to add a new page. This will then create a new page under my 5th post with the parent page applied. So the first thing I'll need to do here is come over to the Pages panel, right click on my new page and click on Apply Parent to Pages. With the pop-up menu, I'll click on the drop down and set this to none. What I want to do here is just create a blank slate in which to develop the new canvas size. Once I have disabled the parent page from the page, I'll come into the Tools menu and select the Page tool. I'll click on my new page, and up in the control panel we can see the current size of the page. Now I'm about to change the size of the page, and you can also do this in the Properties panel. If I click on the Properties panel, you will also see the information for the page size without anything else. So with the page selected, with the Page tool, up in the control panel I'll change the height to 627, and I'll change the width to 1200 pixels. And this will change the size of the page. Next, I'm going to quickly set up a parent page for this new canvas size. So I'll come into the Pages panel, click on the top right menu and click New Parent. Upon click, the menu will appear. Down in the width, I'll set this to 1200 pixels, set the height to 627, click OK, and the new Parent B page will appear. So I'll double click back onto a page in my document to come out of the new parent page. I'll come into the Pages panel, right click on the new page, click Apply Parent Pages. To this page I'll set B, choose to use the parent page size and click OK. Next I'll come back into the parent page B and reset the margin. I'll come and double click on parent B. With the parent page open, I'll come up to Layout, click on Margins and Columns. This time I'll set the top and bottom to 40 pixels and left and right to 80 pixels and click OK. Again, I'll come back up to Layout. This time, click on Create Guides. I'll set the rows to 30, the gutter to 0. I'll make sure for the Fit Guides to option, I'll make sure that Margins is clicked and click OK. So this time, instead of jumping straight back into my document page, I'll create the base grid. So just like I did earlier, I'll grab the Rectangle tool, make sure the grid layer is selected, and from the top left, click down along the bottom margin and drag across to the middle of the margin on the far right. And I'll make sure to set the stroke to 1. With the Line tool, I'll draw a vertical line and place it in the middle. Select both strokes. Into the Object Styles panel, I'll apply the stroke style and it will change to Ultravio. I'll double click into Parent Page A, grab the logo mark, copy and paste into Parent B on the base image layer, and I'll paste this up in the top right and scale down to the height of 3 rows. Double click back onto page 6, and now I have the foundation established to create a new set of posts. To make this easy, I'll click to add 4 new pages. I'll drag these up and move them apart to create a new row. And now it's just a case of going across from post 1 to 5 using the same techniques as demonstrated earlier. I'll click and drag the elements from the top posts down while holding Alt to duplicate. And as I place them, I can simply change the size to fit. I can copy and paste the type from the above frames down into the below frames. Also, I can override the logo mark element, change the color of the elements to have more contrast to stand out on the background images. And after a little bit of editing and repositioning of all the elements, I'll then have a new row of 5 identical posts as above, but now set to different page dimensions. Awesome. So before we close off this tutorial, there is one last thing that is quite important to keep in mind, and that is style management. In this video, we created various styles and we also pasted in some styles from other documents. If we look in the paragraph styles panel, right now we can see that we have a number of styles building up here. Now we could just leave it as is and move on, but if we want to be really organized, we can manage these styles. This can make the whole process and workflow of using InDesign and styles easier. In this video, we copied styles from other documents, so we've already got some folders here. What we are going to do now is just manage these and clean them all up. First, in the paragraph styles panel, I'll drag the header style we made earlier into the header and titles folder, order from top to bottom like so, and arrange my folders so the headers and titles is at the top and the label folder is at the bottom. Into the character styles panel, I'll create a new folder. I'll call this label colors. Make sure it's set to the bottom and drag in the label color styles. Into the object styles panel, I'll create a folder called strokes, drag in my stroke styles, and here we're creating a clear and organized hierarchy of our styles. Nice. So once you're happy with your design and you want to export ready for posting, you can either export the entire document or you can export selected pages. First, I just want to export the first row of social media posts. So when you're ready to export, simply come up to File and click on Export, or press Command plus E on Mac or Control plus E on PC. I'll navigate to the project folder I saved previously in the course, click into the Publish folder, click the JPEG folder. In here, I'll create a new folder and call this Insta Posts. Now I'll set the naming conventions to DE_Insta_, and down in the format, I'll choose JPEG. Now this is really important. I'll click Save and up will pop another menu. Here I'm going to set the range to 1-5. I'll make sure pages is selected. For quality, I'll set this to maximum. I'll set the resolution to 150 just to get some nice quality files, but you can also set this to 72. Color space to RGB, and then click Export. Now I'll navigate to my course folder, look in the Publish folder in the JPEGs folder. We will now see 5 separate JPEG images. So setting the name conventions to DE_Insta_ has allowed the naming to follow suit. Since we exported 5 separate files, we can now see that the additional files are now DE_2, 3, and so on. Now we can preview these, and we can see there are single image files, and here we cannot see the black margin crop because we set this to not print in the layers panel. These are now ready to upload to Instagram and should look great in a Instagram wall feed. So back into the document. Next, I want to export the second row. I'll press Command plus E on Mac or Control plus E on PC. I'll navigate back to my project folder, click into the Publish folder, select the JPEG folder. Here I'll create a new folder and call this LinkedIn Posts. I'll set the naming convention of the set to DE_wide_, and down in the format I'll choose JPEG. I'll click Save and up will pop the menu. This time I'll set the range to 6-10, click Export, and in the new LinkedIn folder in the Publish folder, we can see 5 new posts with the new dimension. Nice. Now if, for whatever reason, you wanted to re-export a particular post, you could simply make any changes in the InDesign file, re-export, select the file you want to replace. In this case, I want to re-export the 5th post in the Instagram folder. Click to replace, be careful to set the right page in the range, click Export, and now you'll have the update frame, and you are now free to use these files to upload to social media platforms. Perfect. So that's how you can harness the power of InDesign and set up documents to create static social media posts in InDesign. Now, another common approach used for social media is the carousel post. Unlike the static posts, these include multiple seamless frames. Using InDesign, you can also create seamless posts and export them with ease. In the next video, we are going to look at how we can build on what we learned in this video and look at how we can create seamless carousel posts in InDesign. So I'll see you in the next video.